And we are live. Let's do this again. It's time for the Huddersfield preview. Manchester United back in Premier League action after a couple of pretty disappointing performances, but all right results in my opinion. I am joined today by Mohammed Butt from Squawker, from Cheeky Sport, Dave.
Come on!
Please go and subscribe to Cheeky Sport. It makes me laugh every single time they upload a video. They're brilliant. And also Scott's here as well. Right, let's get straight into it then and let's talk about injuries. It's really the only place we can start. Quite a few names out for United at the minute. Pogba's out, Bailey's out, Fellaini, Carrick, Zlatan, of course, as well. Rojo and Marcus Rashford last night, of course, throwing his shin pads on the floor. He looks like that could be a bad one and he could be out for quite a bit. But we will wait and see from Jose. At the minute of recording, though, none of us really know how long he's going to be out for. But let's start with Mohammed. Tell me about this Manchester United squad. Do they have enough about them to deal with these injuries?
Yes and no. It depends on the position, right? Like, I mean, you look at losing Eric Bailey and Marcus Rojo to injury, right? They were the two best centre-halves at the club last season, right? So you'd think that's pretty bad. But luckily, Lindelof is good. But more importantly, Jones and Smalling are playing very well. Jones in particular, apart from the Stoke game where he was diabolical, has been very good. He's been really solid. He's probably been United's best defender, actually, if you take the Stoke game away. And then Smalling is, from being so anti-Mourinho, looking like he was on the way out, has stayed in it. And I mean, he's a solid defender. He's not great or anything, but he's playing well right now. So that's not a disaster, for instance, right? And Zlatan Ibrahimovic, last season again, losing him would have been horrible, but he's gone. It doesn't matter because United have got Lukaku, they've got Rashford. They had Rashford. They have options, right? But the other injuries, they're the problem, right? Because Rashford is a big one, right? Because the double act on the left wing, Rashford and Martial, has been basically the key to United playing well right now, of late, right? And the reason is it's not just that they're two great players, it's the way they dovetail so well. So Rashford comes on, Rashford starts, runs at the right back ragged, plays really well, maybe gets an assist, maybe doesn't. But then, Martial replaces him after an hour, and you've got a fresh player who's got world-class talent running at you. And then that's brilliant. So, whoever started, whoever came off the bench, it worked. But just having one of them, that's going to be a problem. Rashford didn't need crutches coming back from
good news
from the game. So hopefully his injury isn't too serious. We'll see. But the big problem is, where United definitely cannot cope, is in central midfield with those injuries. Carrick, I mean, he would have been useful to have, but Fellaini and Pogba in particular, really just bad luck to have those injuries because United haven't looked the same since Pogba got hurt. Let's just be honest, right? They haven't played anything like the same fluency, anything like the same attractiveness. The quality just isn't there. And okay, fine, you're going to lose a little bit of quality because no one is as good as Paul Pogba in United's squad, right? He's a world-class player. But they coped a little bit. They coped somehow with the physical power of Marouane Fellaini, using that sort of physique and aerial threat, right? But now he's gone as well. And so they're left with Ander Herrera, who's like a store-brand version of Pogba, I guess, if you want to say that. And Matic is still doing his great work.
Savage.
I love Ander Herrera, but he's not a world-class player. He's not, he can do many things, but one thing he probably can't do is sort of take control of a game, really exert his authority on a game in an offensive capacity. Obviously, he controlled the Chelsea game defensively by marking Eden Hazard, but yeah, so in the middle of the park, those injuries are a problem for United, and I don't know really how well they can cope. If those Fellaini and Pogba are indeed out long term, I don't know how they can cope over that long term. I think that will start to get to them. They need to bring some fresh bodies in there. Other positions, it's not so bad. They can get by, but in midfield, that's a problem.
It worries me as well that some of the players that we're left with are also very injury prone. I mean, obviously, Phil Jones being the one that jumps out there. And can I just say about Phil Jones as well, because I saw a couple of comments in the last video saying, Gaz, why are you slagging off Phil Jones? He's had a great season. Phil Jones is in great form. And I think I said we're just waiting for him to remember that he's Phil Jones. The thing is, right, is I remember being this excited about Chris Smalling. And I remember being like, yes, Chris Smalling, he had 6 months where he looked world class and unbeatable. And I was like, yes, Chris Smalling is turning into the player we all thought he was. And then, of course, he went right off the boil. And I kind of feel like that's going to be the case with Phil Jones a little bit. He'll just sort of remember that he's not that good. Cheeky Sport Dave, talk to me about the injuries, mate. Are you worried? And is it really any excuse? I mean, managers have the summer to build their squads for this exact reason.
Yeah, but then at the same time, you've got to look at it. You can't really have a world-class replacement for the likes of Paul Pogba sitting on the bench every day. So when you lose the likes of somebody like Paul Pogba, you're going to feel it. So, I think we've got away with it quite well, to be honest with you, so far in the season. And I think right now there's a few Man United fans that are getting like on Jose's back about the performances and so on and so forth. But I think, it's expected when you lose such a powerhouse in the centre of the park. And a lot of Man United fans as well last season didn't give Paul Pogba the full props that he deserved last season.
Agreed.
For his positional play and for his ability to assert dominance on the game, especially from the midfield perspective. And I think if you look at certain games, like the second half against Southampton, we were overrun in the midfield by Southampton. They had the complete run of the green in the second half of that Southampton game, and that was practically the entirety of the game against Liverpool. You know what I mean? I said this on one of our videos, like, I wonder why. That's because Southampton and Liverpool's feeder club. But honestly, you could see the evidence in both those two games that Paul Pogba is a huge, massive miss. Somebody who is cool, calm, and collected on the ball. Somebody who doesn't really feel too much pressure. Somebody that can find a pass, even though he's surrounded by 3 or 4 players. We don't really have that at the moment. I mean, we have that in Matic a little bit, especially in the holding and defensive capabilities. But when it comes to driving the ball forward and giving that full incisive pass, we're missing the likes of Paul Pogba greatly, like massively. And I think credit to Jose Mourinho massively because of what he's been able to grind out. In the case of missing Paul Pogba. I'm just hoping that we get him back soon because obviously we've got a major game. Obviously we've got Huddersfield this weekend, but we've got a major game looking to the Tottenham game on the 28th, where Tottenham are very, very powerful in the midfield, and missing somebody like Paul Pogba can make us have a similar game to that against Liverpool.
I completely agree with you, Dave. And you know what? People are slagging off the way Jose Mourinho sort of went about those last 2 games. But I feel like if we had that player in there to link the defence to the attack a lot better, like Paul Pogba, those games wouldn't have gone that way at all. Scott, do you agree, pal?
I mean, I'd be more concerned if we weren't playing Huddersfield and Swansea. I'll be honest. Where I am obviously concerned is it's our spine of our team. It's the spine. It's Bailey, Pogba, Ibrahimovic. It's where we need the most solidity, and that's my only concern. But I have great faith in Mourinho, and the last 2 performances were, a point against Liverpool and a win against Benfica. We win the next game, we qualify. 2 games to rest players. It's I'm not worried at all, really.
I'm not having any of that disrespecting Huddersfield, by the way. That's completely out of order. Huddersfield are a big club. In fact, Huddersfield are only 1 Premier League win away from catching Manchester City. So none of that. We respect them, right? We respect them. Right. So, just had to get that in there. Right, moving on. Let's talk about Romelu Lukaku. This is when you know you've got a class striker, when you start worrying because he's had 2 games without scoring. I think there is more of a concern about his actual performance in those last 2 games. The Liverpool one, I think he was our worst player, really. He had one job to hold the ball up and play it on, and he didn't do it too well. Cheeky Sport, Dave, do you agree with me, pal?
Yeah, I mean, of course, without a shadow of a doubt, you need your top striker to be able to assert his dominance on these games. But the reality is, you are going to have games where that happens. You are going to have games where players aren't going to perform, especially the ones that you need to score goals. And what the key is, what the most important thing is in that aspect is to not lose, and indeed in some cases to win. And so far so good. We've been able to sustain that for the past couple of games, and I think we have the manpower to do that. The question is for how long. So obviously we want him to get back to form as soon as possible, to get back to scoring goals as soon as possible. But the great thing about it is, in essence, we haven't lost in Lukaku not being able to score so far. So far, not great, but so far, so good.
Yeah, I've just seen a few fans getting on his back, so I thought I'd ask you if it's a massive concern for you guys. Scott, any concerns about Lukaku? 2 games without a goal, not really great performances?
I mean, it's absurd, the reaction. Liverpool and Benfica away.
Yeah, mate, I completely agree with you. I just feel like, you know what, people are talking about it, let's ask the question.
Like I said, I mean, he'll bag hat-trick tomorrow, the weekend, and he'll be forgotten for 6 hours. It's absurd. Absolutely absurd. Like I said, if you can't score, 1 in 2, suddenly you're not a very good striker. But listen, we all knew that he didn't have a good first control.
Yeah.
Good touch. We're all aware of this. The difference between him and Zlatan is he can get beyond the defender.
Yeah.
So that's the only difference. I mean, so if that's what we're after, then when Zlatan comes back, we'll be a lot better if that's the kind of tactics Jose wants to play. But Lukaku, he's a kid. No, not worried. He's a kid.
I think just to plug in before Mo gets in, yeah. I think the funniest thing is Lukaku has the character to be more upset with himself than anybody else is. So he himself is going to be looking to himself to perform a lot better. He's not somebody who is going to get his head down. He's somebody who's going to get his head down and work hard in order to perform a lot better in the next few games. And that's the key when we recruited somebody like Lukaku. He's somebody who believes in wanting to be the best. And when you have somebody with that Manchester United persona, you're always going to have greatness in the long term. Right. So
yeah, look, I mean, building off that, what Dave said, exactly right. Like you look at Lukaku, right? Struggled, didn't score the last 2 games, could have been sulking, having a bit of a ended the Benfica game. What does he do? First thing is he goes up to the keeper, the kid, and he's like consoling him, like, "Don't worry, you'll get." On. I mean, that just says everything about him as a player, as a person. Like the first thing he thought of, okay, he's not whining and not too worried about himself. He's just going to let me console this kid. And I'll tell you why he's not worried about himself, right? In these 2 games where he's scored no goals, he's had 1 shot. Literally, he's had no service. I mean, in Benfica, that was partly because we didn't really play well. Against Liverpool, it was almost by design. He had 1 shot, and okay, now fine, he should have scored that 1 shot because it was that chance against Liverpool where he got played through, and it was actually a pretty decent chance. But literally, he's a striker. He can't score goals out. He's not the kind of striker to score goals out of thin air. So give him. He has to be supplied chances. His goals so far for you have come from crosses and through balls. Like he's had none of those. So there's no concern. I would imagine even if he was the kind of striker to get concerned. I mean, he's not, like Dave says, he's not that kind of guy. But even if he was, he wouldn't be concerned because he's literally not had the supply his last 2 games. Liverpool was always going to be the kind of game where he was just not going to get much of a look in. He barely touched the ball. I think he had like one pass in the first 20 minutes. So and against Benfica, United just didn't play well. Normally, United would have played with a sort of sense of fluency, but it wasn't there. Mkhitaryan was probably as bad as he's been this season, and Rashford didn't really, he had a couple of dribbles, but he didn't really have the most productive game. So creativity-wise, there was nothing. Mata was quite poor as well. So there was nothing for him to get the ball with. And against Liverpool, obviously, United would just focus on defending. I mean, that was a mistake. United should have gone at Liverpool, but as it turns out, United were just defending. So no, there's no concern. But yeah, I do love the fact that United are getting worried. Those 2 games since the score, it's like, oh god.
Basically, just
it's ridiculous, but it indicates a shift in perspective, and a shift in the way United see themselves. United fans see themselves. Like it's not the whole talk of like transition, the Moyesian, Van Gaalian era of like, oh, we're building to something. No. It's let's get it done now. You know what I mean? United fans are back with it. We have to score. And that's good. It's a good sign for United because it does indicate that United have now turned the corner and are not on the pitch, but like in terms of reputation and confidence and self-identification, they're back where they should be.
I think, and I love that you mentioned that as well about Lukaku going up to the goalie after the game. It obviously was Lukaku to do it because they are both Belgian. But I did kind of want to see like De Gea doing sort of like a bathroom-style Cool Runnings hype up in the mirror. That's all I'd see. I see pride. I see power. That's what I want, man. Right, I'm just going to get a couple of comments in then, see what people are saying below. George Tatenda says, Mickey should be benched. He hasn't been good for 2, if not 3 games. I actually think that Mkhitaryan hasn't been great all season. He was being saved and his place in the team was being kept because of the assists that he did keep racking up. But a lot of the time, they just kept coming out of nowhere and his sort of performances weren't great. Scott, you're laughing at me. Do you disagree, pal?
I disagree with you there. What kept him in was his job.
No, I know.
Create assists.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying, but he had like 9 times out of 10, he'd lose the ball, and then admittedly that one time he did rack up an assist. So I know what you're saying. He is doing his job, but I think in the last few
Mkhitaryan hasn't looked the same since Pogba left. I mean, I agree with him. He looks tired. He looks frustrated. I think I would drop him out for a couple of games. I agree with the comment. I think just give him a rest. Just Put him on the sidelines for now.
Yeah, exactly. I think Mata would do a better job, I think, at the minute. Salford Reds MUSC says, we're missing Pogba in midfield, couldn't care less about Fellaini. Fellaini did a good job when he replaced him, but I kind of do get what you're saying. Jordan Coombs says, better energy than half the people on the pitch. I think that's just all aimed at you, Cheeky Sport Dave. And Dr. Strange says, our left-back has been a thorn in this United sign for a while. Now we need to strengthen that. Yeah, exactly. We need to go out and get a left-back. I'm surprised we didn't do it in the summer. But hopefully we sort that out for next summer. Maybe even January. We'll wait and see. Right, guys, we will be going to a 30-second ad break if you're watching this later on. If you're watching this live, you're probably not going to get it. But either way, back in a second. Right, and we're back. Let's talk about the starting lineup then. Let's start with Mohammed. Mohammed, tell me your starting lineup for the game against Huddersfield.
Right, well, here we go. I need to get up this table now, so let's go. Dave in goal, right? That's
yes.
Not Cheeky Sport Dave, although actually I think that's quite what I'm but David De Gea. Tony V right back, captain, leader, legend, you know how it is. Chris Smalling in defence with Phil Jones, because Phil Jones is supposed to be back for the weekend, and I think he still want to ease in Lindelof. So Smalling and Jones at the back. Ashley Young back at left back, because he's honestly been the best of the three people that have played there this season, which is kind of depressing, but there you go. Herrera and Matic in midfield because everyone else is injured. Now I do think he's going to drop Mkhitaryan. I thought Mkhitaryan has been poor for a while now. I think he was specifically poor last night. I think drop Mkhitaryan. It's going to be Lingard, Mata, and Martial behind the striker. I think it would have been Martial's turn to start anyway, regardless of Rashford's injury. But now I think Martial's definitely going to start, even if Rashford is fit. He'll just come off the bench. I think Lukaku up front.
Nice. So Ashley Young at left back then. That's a real big shout at that. Scott, are you going with that as well, pal?
No.
I knew it. I knew as soon as I said that. I knew you weren't going to go with Ashley Young at left back. I don't blame you either, pal. What have you gone with?
Even worse, Blind at left back.
Oh, no! I'd rather have Ashley Young.
Oh man,
I can't do it. I can't. But go on, Scott, tell me, team.
Left back Blind. Smalling, I think he's going to give Lindelof a go. I really do.
Oh, that's a good shout. I
just think he's going to play him. He's going to have Blind either side and Smalling. He'll be fine. So does Phil. Then Matic, Herrera, Mkhitaryan, Marshall, Mata, Lukaku. So.
Look, listen, I've already said in this preview we are not disrespecting Huddersfield. If anyone out there thinks that Man City are a big club, then you've also got to think that Huddersfield are a big club as well. They're only one league title behind. They're catching them up. They're just behind him.
The Huddersfield inspired the League of Gentlemen.
Exactly. That's all you need to know. Cheeky Sport Dave, tell me your team, pal.
Yeah, mine's a bit nuts actually. To be honest, I went with David De Gea in goal, Valencia right back, Jones. I actually put Bailly in my team. I know he's injured, but I don't really know how injured he is. So I put him in there back just in case. You know what I mean? He might. I mean, you never know with Jose. He might just pop out of nowhere. You see what I'm saying? Little wild card there. And then I went with Blind at left back. That's because he's not a side which I think is going to pose the biggest amount of attacking threat. So it's good to get him some game time out there as well and see if he can swing a few balls in as well. Obviously, Matic and Herrera. And then I went for Lingard, Mata and Martial with Lukaku up front. I think it's a game in which Jose can afford to start Lingard. I'm not, like you said, disrespecting Huddersfield here. But it'd be good for Lingard to get an actual start. And I think it's a game in which Jose can afford to give him that. So, yeah.
You just look at the team that you guys have put out, right? And it seems so blaringly obvious to everyone apart from Jose Mourinho that is with quite a few injuries, and it still looks a very, very good team apart from that left-back position. Like, it was Ashley Young or Daley Blind are the two names, and it's just like, I just don't rate either of those two at left-back. I'm sorry. Right, let's talk about Huddersfield then. See if you guys know a little bit more about them than me. The only thing I know is that they've not won a game in 6 matches. They had a good start, and they've gone completely off the boil. Mohammed, but let's start with you, pal. Tell me about Huddersfield.
I mean, yeah, look, no one really expected much from them. And then they opened it like a whirlwind, 3-0 against Palace and then 1-0 against Newcastle. So they started off really well. Steve Mooney was a sort of a revelation in an attack. You know, he was really, really good. but then he sort of went off the ball a little bit, and he got injured as well now. He's been injured for a while, and he missed since the West Ham game. I think he's been injured. So, and like you said, they haven't won in 6 Premier League games. They've only scored 1 goal in all that time against Leicester.
God.
So they don't pose the most attacking threat, and they're struggling defensively. They conceded 6 goals in the last 2 games, 4 to Spurs, 2 to Swansea. So they're vulnerable defensively, but Steve Mooney is supposed to be back for this game, so that could be different. It could be interesting in attack now. I mean, they haven't really been since the start of the season. I'm not saying that they're going to come at United and hammer them by 4 goals, but if Mooney is fit and he does play, that presents a unique challenge for the United defenders. He's got a physical skill set, but he's very intelligent with his movement, knows where and when to go and where to pressure defenders. So, if you're not, it's Smalling and Jones or Smalling and whoever plays, basically. If they're not up to it, they're not on their toes, Mooney could really give them a bit of pacing. But I think this is pretty much a win for United. I mean, this is Huddersfield are not, like I said, no win in 6, 1 goal in 6. They're not a great side. They could pose a little bit of a threat if Mooney's fit again on the break or playing into the air, but it's unlikely they'll really hurt United too much.
Thank you, Mohammed. From Squawker, I always love when we're talking about opposition and it's someone like Huddersfield. I always go to the Squawker guy first. They come out with all the stats, and then we go over to you two, and me included in this, and we don't really have much of a clue. Cheeky Sport Dave, can you tell me anything about Huddersfield, pal?
Well, I went to go and see them in the playoff final, actually, against Reading. Strangely enough, I wanted Reading to come up, to be honest with you. But they are a team that's able to organise very well defensively. I guess it all just depends on the way Manchester United come out at the start of the game. If they assert their dominance in the game immediately, then I think we could have a bit of a goal route here. But I think if we don't, early on in the first half or within the first half of the first half, first quarter.
That's what the kids are calling it nowadays, the first quarter.
I think they could very well frustrate. They know how to hold in teams and then come out on the break. So I think it's something that we have to take into consideration. But I think it's on Manchester United to take this game to them. And to be honest with you, once we get a goal in, hopefully early on, the game opens up and we can have a very good time. It's not a game of which, like I originally said, I'm too fearful about the loss of Pogba and Fellaini because of the fact that I believe the team is strong enough to assert dominance and to win this game quite comfortably. But don't play around with the underdogs Huddersfield. They're not going to allow us to just come to their home and to run away with it. So we have to be on the boil and ready for the game.
That's it. Scott, I thought that earlier on this season when we were racking up the 4-0s like left, right and centre, I thought that a lot of that was because we were coming up against teams who actually wanted to play us. You know what I mean? They didn't just want to sit back and get away with a draw if they can. Do you reckon that that'll be the same with Huddersfield, or do you reckon they'll just be purely focused on defending, a little bit like we were at Anfield?
I can see basically what Harry Kane did to them. Lukaku will do the same. They'll just bully them. It's too big, too strong. I said 6-0, lad.
Wow. Well, you know what? We're going to get the score predictions now, but are you saying 6-0, Scott?
Yeah, but the only thing I know about Huddersfield is Jeremy Kyle goes there for guests. I've just
the one player to keep an eye on, right? I mean, they've got Tom Ince, but if you know Aaron Moy, right? He's created 11 chances. No one else has created more than 6, right? You take care of Aaron Moy in midfield. I'm assuming Matic or Herrera will have the job to mark him. You mark Aaron Moy out of the game, you cut off their entire creativity thing. I mean, and then the only thing they can have is maybe long balls to Mooney if he's fit. So taking care of Aaron Moy is really just the key thing for United defensively. And Mourinho, he's such a diligent guy, does his research like crazy. He'll have done that. He'll have known that. You sort out Aaron Moy, and then it could. I mean, I don't want to say 6-0, but it could be a big score if United.
Right, Scott, are you saying 6-0? Is that your final answer for your score prediction?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Lukaku, Marshall, Patrick.
Oh, imagine that. Oh, what a day that'd be. Mohammed from Squawker, tell me your score prediction, pal.
I'm gonna go with a 4-1. I think it'll be a tight 1-0 or even a 1-1 until late on, and then United will just steamroller them as United have done basically lately.
Ace. Cheeky Sport Dave, your one?
I'm going for a conservative 4-0. You know what I mean? Bring the four back in it. Just bring the four back. You know
that, mate, it'll be the perfect thing as well after that Liverpool game with everyone getting on our backs. It would be lovely just to get a good old 4-0. I miss 4-0s. But as you know what, I'm going to say I'm going to be a little bit more conservative than everyone. I'm going to say 2-0 just to play it safe. Right, thank you very much for watching. My name's been Gaz Drinkwater. This has been Full Time Devils. Been joined today by Scott, by Mohammed from Squawker, and Cheeky Sport Dave as well. Follow the guys on Twitter. They're all great guys. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. We will be back very, very soon. Let's hope the Reds can get back to winning ways in the league against Huddersfield. Laters!